Hello and welcome to the Media Club podcast. Before we begin with today's topic, we are going to introduce our speakers by mentioning our name, grade, school, and answering the question, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be? So I'll go first. My name is Eunice. I'm a rising junior at Cypress High School, and if I could go anywhere in the world, it would be Switzerland. And we'll go to Kenneth.
Hi everyone, my name is Kenneth Yang, and I'm from our prep. I'm a rising senior, and if I could go anywhere in the world, I would go to Switzerland as well. So,
Yay, we can go together in the future, maybe. Okay, we'll move on to Connor.
I'm Connor. I'm going to be a sophomore at Troy High School, and I'd like to go to Korea.
And then Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Lee. I'm a rising junior at Sunny Hills High School, and I would go to Japan.
Did you say Japan?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. We'll move on to Joshua.
Hi, I'm Joshua Song. I'm a rising senior at Valencia High School. If I could go anywhere in the world, I would probably go back to Korea.
Okay, we'll move on to Irene.
Hi, I'm Irene. I'm a rising senior at National University Virtual High School. And if I could go anywhere in the world, it would be New York City.
All right, Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm going to be a rising junior at Rowan High School, and a place I wish to go in the world is France.
Ooh, that's a nice place. Kyle.
Hi, I'm Kyle Min. Going to be a junior at Los Alamitos High School, and if I were to go anywhere, I would go to Seoul, Korea.
Ellie.
Hi, my name is Ellie. I'm a rising junior. I go to Sunny Hills High School, and I would love to go to Korea.
Daniel.
hey everyone, my name is Daniel Kong. I'm a rising junior, and I also go to Sunny Hills. And if I could travel anywhere, I would go to the Caribbean.
Shauna.
Shauna Park. I'm a rising junior at Cypress High School, and if I could go anywhere, I would go to Singapore.
Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph Kim. I'm a rising freshman at Cypress High School, and if I could go anywhere, I would go to Korea.
Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne. I'm a rising junior at Oxford, and I would go to Korea.
Okay, Victoria.
My name is Victoria, and I'm going to be an incoming junior at Troy High School. And if I could go anywhere, I would go to Korea too.
And last but not least, Lois.
Hi, my name is Lois Chan, and I'm a rising freshman. And if I could go anywhere in the world, I'd go to Australia.
All right, so now that we've introduced everybody, we're going to start with today's topic, which is the state of the pandemic in America. We're going to break it down to a couple of categories. And our first question will be, what about this crisis worries you the most? Or like, have you seen anything that maybe gives you hope? Just how do you feel about the state of the pandemic and how it's progressing, maybe specifically in America or in your communities?
I guess like as of right now, since like the numbers are like going really high for COVID right now, and then plus like for my district, they're starting to open school again like August with the three options, like virtual or like independent or blended. So I'm kind of iffy about if I should just what option to choose for it right now.
Yeah, I think my school has like a similar scenario where we have a hybrid or online. Does anybody else have a specific scenario like that? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to mention how like the rates of like people getting infected by COVID, it was going down until recently when like places started opening up again, and now like a bunch of like states, they're in like worse condition than they were before, and so the rates are getting higher.
I'd like to follow up on like how the rates was also getting worse. I guess one of the major contributions was also like protesting, of all the times like the protest had to happen, it was during COVID-19, and so people were protesting for a right cause, but also that eventually led to people getting close together and spreading the virus even quicker.
Right. So I saw statistics somewhere that in the beginning of July, like the first few days, there was like a record high number of new cases, which is like 50,000. So like after seeing all those scary numbers, does anything about this pandemic give you hope? Like, have you guys seen like results for like new vaccines or some other precautions that are making it more optimistic?
I think something that's, I guess, hopeful is that a lot of people are taking initiative to help it. And a lot of high schoolers, especially, and a lot of the people I see, they're thinking of ways that they can, I guess, like help the situation is something that we wouldn't have been able to see as much if it weren't for the coronavirus.
Well, I know a lot of people in my community, they've started drives for like masks and started businesses so that they can raise money for their like local hospitals, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, but like Leanne said, there's a lot of people around the country, especially teenagers, that are starting to take up their own projects so that they can help out with this pandemic. All right, so let's move on to the next topic then, if anybody doesn't have anything else to add. So the next will be the politicization of the pandemic. So obviously there's a lot of clash on both sides of the aisle on what we should do about this pandemic. So our first question would be, why do you think Democrats and Republicans can't agree on the threat that coronavirus poses to our country?
I think rather like they're not focused on like the actual COVID, like the damage that it's doing to the citizens, but rather they're more focused on like their political views. And I think that they should like put their political views outside for like the great and like focus on the people first.
Yeah, like to add on to that, I think I like so then like once someone in like the Democrat or Republican Party gets a stance on like the pandemic, I think others in the same party end up like following that lead and looking at it as a political view instead of like yeah, like Daniel said, instead of focusing on what's right. So then they kind of like forced it into a political like standard.
Yeah, does anybody have anything else to add?
I think a big part of why people really want to open up and instead risk the citizens is because like they're losing profits on a lot of things if they choose not to open up. And a lot of, I mean, both sides really in the government have a lot of like businesses they need to take care of. But I think in this case, Republicans have a lot more like businesses that could be impacted by the virus as compared to the Democrats. So they're more willing to risk citizens.
Yeah, exactly, Joshua. I feel like it's a lot about difference of priorities as well, as you guys have mentioned. Like people have different agendas that they'd like to push, therefore their actions are impacted. So to talk more about like some of the things that have happened because of people's different opinions, recently the US began to withdraw from the World Health Organization a few days ago over the fact that WHO, which is the World Health Organization, acted as an accomplice to China when they tried to initially cover up the virus. So how do you think this will affect the WHO long term? What are your opinions on that action taken by the Trump administration?
I think this is like on balance like more beneficial because we, the US, we almost make up 10% of the WHO funding. And if WHO is going to try to cover up for like China's mistakes and like China's corruption and everything, and this isn't the first time that WHO has had like a lackluster response to like different pandemics and everything. Like even in the Ebola crisis, they didn't really take initiative. Even in cholera outbreaks in Africa, they didn't really do anything. And so I think this will be a good lesson, especially because they're losing like about 10% of their funding, which is a huge portion. And so if they're going to be corrupt and not have proper responses, especially as a global institution, they should be leading in world health because they're literally the organization that has like that needs to fulfill the health of like everybody in this world. And but if they're not doing that, I think it would be more beneficial to try to say that you need to do a better job. And by pulling out, I think we're sending them like a clear message.
I wanted to mention that the United States, they're the WHO's number one country in like funding. They fund over $450 million annually. So I feel like it's a duty as like one of the most like prosperous nations in the world, like that we should be helping other countries. And rather than just leaving the organization entirely, I feel like since we have so much power as the leading funder for the organization, that we should actually try to help the country, help the organization and change it from the inside, rather than just giving up and completely leaving several countries just to like on their own.
So I guess that does beg the question, because we have seen evidence that the World Health Organization hasn't responded to the best of its abilities to like previous outbreaks and pandemics. What do you think the best course should be, instead of maybe like pulling out of the WHO and like withholding money? What do you think we should do?
Like on like Joseph's point, and like how like the World Health Organization was like historically proven to be like unethical in some ways. Although that's true, like I feel like it's still like the most major international public health organization, and that it should be like one of the most prioritized kind of organizations towards combating COVID-19. Although there have been like talks about new vaccines on like combating COVID-19 itself and testing on diagnosed patients, it still hasn't been proven to be like 100% effective, and still working with like other international countries on like guaranteeing to find a vaccine for it is probably the best idea. And Trump pulling out that much funding is like, it's like what are his next actions to it? Like trying to create his own public health organization for America itself is at this time, I personally feel like it would be difficult for that to happen, and that I agree with like Daniel how like he should change it from the inside out, instead of just like rather than pulling out like completely and giving up on an international public health organization. So.
And do you have any idea of any like specific improvements that they should make, such as like maybe some more measures for accountability?
I feel like they should put more responsibility on like the World Health Organization on how they like diagnose like diseases like this. Because at first, the World Health Organization diagnosed the virus as like very rare in cases, and that it shouldn't be like prioritized as much. And then later on, they changed it to like a very dangerous disease that should be considered a high priority. I feel like taking the time to analyze it at first and then giving a response, instead of just immediately giving a rare case response and then changing it later on, is probably a better responsibility for the World Health Organization. And like taking the duty to lead on other public health organizations that are designated within their individual countries is probably a really important role for them. So.
Yeah, those are some great ideas. Lois, what do you think? Do you have any improvements in mind, or what's your take on what's going on with the WHO in the United States?
What Daniel and Kenneth both said, I do feel like as like the number one like number one country to be funding the WHO, we shouldn't be pulling out. We should like that, or like what they both said, we should be working from the inside. But on the other side, I do see Joseph's points on how like how pulling out could also like help them like actually like or like wake up, in a sense that like they shouldn't like be like trying to hide the faults of what China did and like stuff like that.
Yeah, so to like teach them like the hard way, give them like a wake up call, like you said. All right, well, before we move on from the World Health Organization, does anybody else have anything to add?
Just a quick response to Kenneth and Daniel. I think those are pretty good ideas, but at this point, I think we've given the WHO too many chances, and I feel like more than internally changing things, that we need to kind of step back, and if this institution isn't doing anything and it isn't achieving its goals, then I think that it would just be better to try to let them figure it out and let them kind of rethink their own initiatives and rethink how they're doing. And then after, if they're like better in the future, I do agree that we should like come back in and we should support them with the funding and everything. But as of right now, I think we've given them too many chances.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. So Joshua actually brought this up, but let's talk about the economy. Do you think that businesses should be reopening, or just the economy in general? Should we be opening up right now?
So for the economy, the economy can't stay closed forever. Like a lot of families are struggling with their economy, since like a lot of families are like losing jobs due to COVID. So I think economy should open, but there has to be like strict limitations on like certain things that could regulate the spreading of like coronavirus.
Obviously, the economy is very important, but if you really weigh the cost between the cost of a life, between like losing a job, I know that losing a job is very like hurtful, especially to a family that needs like everyone to be working. But if you really like compare the cost of like hospital bills or even like just them like completely like passing away, then I think that the economy can suffer a little longer if we look at the detriment to like people in general.
Yeah, those are great points. Do you guys think it's safe right now to open up the economy?
In my opinion, I think a good amount of businesses should stay like reserved and closed because like long term, if we like open up hastily, like in terms of like purely economic effects, like it's going to be even more disastrous in the future. And even if we stay closed, like humans are like extremely adaptive, so we can find different opportunities, different ways to make income. And there's always things like government funds or like third-party funds, and then we can always implement different different systems, such as like maybe a UBI, like a short-term UBI, not maybe forever, but just for like while businesses are closed and people are struggling. So I think that's an alternative that we can consider.
Yeah, those types of like, I guess you could call it a loan currently does exist. I think it's called PPP, but it's for businesses, I believe. But you did mention that some businesses should open. Do you have any ideas of like which businesses should stay closed, which ones should open, and why?
So obviously, like mainly like that's necessary businesses, so like related to like food industry, but then like keeping things as like eating inside the restaurant like closed off, and trying to just like eliminate as much risk as possible.
All right. Then when do you guys think things will go back to normal in terms of like the economy? Let's hear from Jacob.
Honestly, maybe like 1 or 2 years, in my opinion. I don't know. It's unpredictable right now, so I think so. I like 1 or 2 years.
So I think generally we agree that while the economy is important, we need to value people's safety over what's going on with our economy. We have things like PPPs and loans that can still provide people with economic, I guess, like guarantees. All right. So next we're going to talk about a pretty controversial topic, which is, or actually this will be our last topic, masks. So do you guys feel that there should be like a law requiring mandatory masks?
Yes, because masks are like the most cheapest and effective way to prevent the spreading of virus. So I think it should be mandatory in like everywhere. So I personally don't agree with people protesting for their rights to not wear masks because I think it's really selfish and they're not thinking about the health of like everyone in this country.
Yeah, and especially because the coronavirus is airborne, masks would serve as a really good protection for the virus. It's not an absolute form of prevention, but it would be a good protection.
And where do you think those like opinions of not wearing a mask, like where do you think those beliefs come from? Because I know, Ellie, you mentioned that it may be like selfish, but what other reasons do you think those people might have?
Like prioritizing their like comfort and their like individual rights in front of like everyone's health.
Yeah, and that brings up the question, how can we find the balance between individual rights to not wearing masks and stopping the cases from rising? So what do you think, Connor?
This feels kind of like a situation like anti-masking, even though like wearing the masks, I mean like getting vaccines is going to help. Like there's just like a couple of people that will always like just stand out and like.
Yeah, that's a really tricky question because there's a fine line between public health and individual rights. All right, so this was July's edition of the Brea Media Club podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.